So, time to create the inside of the mouth. Since the sculpt doesn't have an inside of the mouth, I'm not going to be able to use Retopoflow for that, so I'm going to use Blender's standard modeling tools. So isolate selection on the head or local view. That's in view, local view, toggle, or divide on the numpad. So Shift Alt, selecting this edge loop, and then expand, Control plus, duplicate these faces with Shift D, like that, and then I'm going to move G as in grab, then Y on the keyboard to snap to the Y axis. Then I'm get a little intersection here, so I'm going to put my 3D cursor over here somewhere, press over here, using 3D cursor as my pivot point. It's also accessible on like dot on the keyboard. Then scale S on the keyboard, X-axis, and just move that in a bit. Good. I'm going to extrude with E, and I'm going to press Y, so I'm just extruding in the Y-axis. Then I'm going to scale in Y, 0. Oh, just move 3D cursor back here, S as in scale, Y as in scale in that direction, and 0 on the keyboard. And then delete these faces, X, F, and then I'm gonna select this one and this one, so that we're gonna have an open mouth. XF, good. Now since I delete those, I am able to select the edge ring or face ring, Shift Alt, press this edge, XF to delete those. Now, since I made sure to have an even amount of spans on the upper and lower side of the mouth, I can just select this edge, press F a bunch of times to fill. Good. Now I'm going to add some edge loops, Control R, and I'm just going to add the number of cuts. So if you're working in games, you're probably going to want to optimize this a bit better, but I'm going to leave it as it is, because that's usually how you do it in VFX. Yeah. Okay. So now I want to make sure I can connect the mouth to the lips, just pressing F, then F all around, since we had the even amount of spans. Good. Okay. Now I'm gonna separate the inside of the mouth from the head by holding down Shift Alt, clicking this, and then I'm gonna search for select loop inner region. So that means that I'm gonna select all the faces that are on the other side of this loop. You can switch here as well. Then I'm gonna press P to separate those. Bam. Okay, now I'm going to use the sculpt tools a bit just to distribute the vertices a bit better, but I don't want to like touch these faces by accident. So I'm just going to select that loop, expand a bit, and then just hide with H on the keyboard. Going to sculpt mode. This wasn't hidden. Hide that, sculpt mode, okay, that's better. So now I can select the relax brush, Shift, relax, G for grab and move, and Shift just to do a regular smooth. I'm just gonna lazily create a mask, and then face set from masked. That's good. Now I can use the face set auto masking, so G, so that means that I don't accidentally touch the lower or upper part. So A is a mask menu, so clear mask. Moving these down a bit, smoothing with Shift, Now, Shift doesn't keep the volume, so if you want to keep the volume and you want to distribute the vertices, use the relax brush. This is good enough. Shift, yeah. Okay, good. So yeah, you don't model the entire ingestion system. Okay. Alt H to unhide. Yep, this is good. So I'm gonna do some shrink wrapping later on. So that means that I want to keep the mouth completely separate from the head, since there is no high resolution mesh for the mouth. Okay, let's retopologize the area around the eye. So here I'm just gonna go ahead and try to outline what's important first with the annotation tool. So I'm just holding down D here and drawing, just making sure I get the outline right. Okay, good. Choosing the retopologized topology, pressing F, I as in insert, and I'm just gonna make sure I can snap to face and project individual elements. So that means that each of the vertices will be snapped to the surface instead of just the active one, for instance. Moving this, just like that. Do a little relax with loop tools. Yeah, loop tools, by the way, is an add-on that comes with Blender. You can search for that over here, just activate it, and then you have loop tools on your right click menu up here. This is relax, and I've set it to a hotkey, which is Alt R. You can change shortcut here, and then pressing Alt R. So I think I got the outline covered. Now I just want to make sure that I model the inside of the eye socket. So turning off the proportional editing fall off, extruding in. So now I have the thickness of the eyelid, extruding it again, very, very short, then just scaling up, pressing Z down to toggle X-ray. Yeah, something like that. And then extrude again, inwards. You can press Alt S when you have a face selected to move the face in its normal direction, and E again. Okay, I think I got a good depth for a eye socket. So I'm just gonna delete this face, X, F, then select the edge loop, Shift Alt, click, and then I'm gonna search for grid fill. So this basically fills the area, and I can use the offset here to just spin the grid around, adding a loop. Let's do some smoothing as well. One thing I really want to do is to add more loops here, so I'm just gonna add a loop out here, one in here. Alright, just a quick thing for the nostril here as well. Shift Alt and press the boundary loop to select that. Press F to fill, extrude in with E, extrude in again, really short, E, click, scale, and then extrude again. And select these two and press J. Okay, it's time to merge the head with the body and the inside of the mouth as well. So I'm just going to hide the high resolution mesh, select all of these objects, and you can join them by going to Object and select Join or pressing Ctrl J. Now I want to make sure that all of the edges are merged. You can check this either by turning on a smooth modifier. You can see here that It's a big gap here. Or you can go here, select everything with A, F3, select boundary loop, select boundary loop, there we go. And this will select all of the boundary loops, so this is not connected, right? Then I press M for merged, and I merge by distance, so every vertex that is selected and close to another vertex will be merged. Let's just run select boundary loop again just to check that it worked, and it did. Nice. So I guess you have to watch out for like vertices that are close together like this as well, but you know, it's fine. Let's make sure we have symmetrical sides. So I'm gonna turn on a mirror modifier, and as expected we have some gaps here, so we need to select the center line and just make sure it's set to the middle. One thing we can do is turn on bisect, which basically cuts the mesh in half before flipping it over. So you can see here that that little thing gets fixed if you want to flip to the other side as well. Now it goes from the positive x-axis over to the negative side, and if you press this button it flips it over to the other side. A handy thing is that you can turn on clipping. Clipping basically makes your selection stick to the center line, so if I move things like this now, I can just move it freely, right? But if I turn on clipping, I can move this. I'm gonna snap it to the x-axis, press G, and then X just to move it here. So I'm just moving it really far on the x-axis, pressing the mouse left mouse button, and then I move it back, G, X, and back, and it just snaps there. So once it hits that center line, it sticks there. I see that we have a lot of cleaning up to do, so we need to do some relaxing and stuff. Let's go into sculpt mode, select the relax brush, and just press shift. So the relax brush, when you smooth with that one, the general volume will be kept. I can also auto-mask mesh boundary, so that means that it won't affect the boundary edges like this. So if I start relaxing now, the boundary won't be affected. Okay, I want to set up a Shrinkwrap modifier on the retopology so that it closely follows the surface of the high resolution mesh. Wireframe on and off here, by the way. So a couple of issues that's going to happen is that the inside of the mouth and the eye socket and nostril doesn't really have a proper surface to snap to, since the inside of the mouth is not sculpted. So what I want to do is to make a group that a vertex group that defines which part of the mesh will be shrink wrapped. First, we can just set up the shrink wrap so that we understand what the error is. Modifier, shrink wrap, and that one. So you can see here, the inside of the mouth gets just crazy, and the wrap method currently is nearest surface point, which is not always what you want. I think I prefer to use a projection in the normal direction. A vertex here would use the normal to snap to another surface, instead of just, if the high resolution mesh would sort of be like this vertex would snap to this surface instead of snapping to this surface. Changing to project, which is the normal angle, gonna do both the negative and positive direction of each normal. So that means like positive, then it will only search out, and negative, it will only search inwards. and negative and positive. Now it searches in both directions. I would like it to be outside of the surface. This sounds strange, but it sort of makes sure that the low resolution mesh will always be outside of the mesh instead of snapping to the inside. This is mostly visible when you use offset. You can see here that some of these vertices are snapped to the inside, and then using offset, then some of them will be offsetted inwards, and some of them will be offsetted outwards. Setting offset to 0, just turning this off so I'm seeing what I'm doing. Selecting this loop, then select loop in region, and I'm gonna group this, and this group will end up here. Don't shrink wrap. Same here. I'm gonna assign that. So at any time, if I'm confused about which vertices belong to which group, I can just press select here, and then I see it. Switching back to the modifier here, I'm gonna slot in that vertex group, and if I turn it on now, it's only gonna be that vertex group that gets projected, but I'm gonna actually just inverse that, right? So now the outer part gets shrink wrapped. I was gonna make sure that the normals are not hard. Right click, shade smooth. This retopology exercise is mostly geared towards the VFX side of things. If you are doing retopology for games, you might do a lot of more optimization where you have more density in certain areas and less density of polygons in other areas which are more flat and doesn't deform as much. Like inside of the mouth is a great example. There's a lot of different ways of doing retopology, and you know, in games it's also like how big will this be in world space, etc. When I'm working in VFX pipeline, this would be the preferred density of the mesh. You might create a mesh that is only used for a fast version of the rig. That would be this version. It's just handy to use subdivision to go up one step. Some of the final things I want to do is making sure that this flow goes around each scale on the back. Oh, and I see here we have some issues as well. Could be that the normals are flipped. You can actually check normals by going up here and turn on face orientation. Oh yes, the normals are flipped here. In Blender it's really simple to fix normals. You just go into edit mode, select everything, and then shift and recalculate normals. Search recalculate normals, then I can see mesh normals make consistent. Recalculate outside. The prediction looks way better. Turning off face orientation and going out from local view as well, so we can see the high resolution mesh. So I just realized that I did a little mistake, and that is in the shrink wrap modifier I selected outside, so it kind of just like lies on the outside. You can see here that this area doesn't really project, so it's outside surface, right? And we can set 0 as limit, then it will shrink wrap everything, and that's the vertex group, and invert. Much better. Okay, so one thing I noticed is that I'm really not happy with the topology around the ankle back here. The distribution of vertices are quite fine. However, on the high resolution mesh, there's like a line that goes like this. Up here, it just doesn't project very well with the current topology. You see here that the line goes like this, but the topology goes like this, so it's really not optimal. So I'm gonna fix that now. So I'm gonna start off by do a little sketch just to outline this. Sketch that in real quick. by holding down D on the keyboard. Just to make it easy, I'm just gonna delete some topology, some edge loops around there, and I'm also gonna turn off my Shrinkwrap. So using this, you can see that it's quite skewed the other way. So I'm gonna start to make it flat. I can actually activate loop tools, flatten, right? And then I just need to align this. Yeah, something like that. So one issue that will arise now is that this this line is very short and this line is very long. So if we just insert edge loops, we'll get an uneven spacing, right? So it basically means that I will need to introduce a triangle here somewhere. And the interesting thing with triangle is that people are really scared of triangles, right? Because it messes up the topology. But as long as you know what you're doing and where to place them, it's perfectly fine, because everything is triangles, really. I mean, all quads are actually triangles when it's drawn in the graphics memory. And also, if you are subdividing triangles, I can show you this real quick. If you subdivide triangles, you actually get a quad like this, right? Just gonna delete that. So I'm just adding loops with Control R. A couple of these, GG, GG, just to distribute them. Okay, now I want to sort of pick a center line, holding down Control, and I want to bevel this. And then I can like merge those. I think this will do. We'll try it out. Turn on the shrink wrap. Just gonna duplicate this and apply. Control A. And now I'm kind of looking at how this sort of feels. But I think it'll be fine if we just move down this loop. Gonna turn off the shrink wrap for a second and just do some smoothing. Move this down. Something like that. So you can see that we still have this issue where there's a higher density of polygons here, and it's a bit more sparse here. I think I'll just add another loop actually. And now I just need to add some more loops here and distribute. So what I want to achieve is that the average polygon is square, right? So we got a lot of squashed ones here and some stretched here, so it all evens out sort of. Just gonna distribute these with the relax brush. I don't like how it suddenly just increases in density here. So I will need to select this edge loop, bevel, okay, now let's have a look at how it projects. Yeah, that's definitely better than before. So this is interesting. Let's look at this triangle, how it looks when I subdivide. You can see here the triangle becomes quads instead. So that's good for all the triangle haters out there. Could possibly introduce more triangles here, because the deformation is mostly going to happen around this area. We'll just have to remind ourselves that no solution is perfect. I like that the point distribution is much better now, and the projection is better. So, improvement. Looking at this, I also feel that we can go back and just add one more edge loop to each toe, because the polygons are generally a bit stretched in this direction. So one more loop could help. Select this middle loop. And do a bevel. Some relaxing. And now we have them more square. Okay, so let's finalize this retopology. Final thoughts is that the real topology will be this density, where there's one more subdivision, because this resolution feels very low in terms of render topology, but it could really serve its purpose for animators who want a really snappy rig. It's also important to have a bit more density when you want to hand over something to the VFX artist who want to do skin sliding and that kind of thing, and wrinkles. The mouth and lip area, it feels very blocky in this resolution. That is sort of automatically fixed in this version. That's it. We just need to turn on our mirror modifier and then apply it. Select everything, check if we have some boundary loop. Nothing is selected, so it's a watertight mesh, which means that there's no opening anywhere. And at any point I can apply this subdivision as well and hand it over. And important note, if you have applied this subdivision, if you want to apply all the modifiers, you can just press Ctrl A and make visual geometry to mesh. Now if you want to go back, if you have this and all the subdivisions are baked in, you want to go back one step in subdivision, you can use the multi-resolution and rebuild subdivisions. Turn this off. So that's two ways of doing it. Okay. This is all. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Thank you for watching.